and welcome to another episode of the Unwanted Opinions podcast. Jay and I are back here on a Thursday evening. Gonna talk to you guys about what's going on, and got some updates for the NFL, what they're doing for preseason training camp testing, etc. Jay and I talked about it last week, how I think everybody saw all the players tweeting they had no plan at all, and now they've got somewhat of a plan, what they're doing. I think it's going to make sense, so we'll talk briefly about that. It was also announced a few days ago that the NBA awards will be voted upon based off of the shutdown of the season on March 11th. So these 8 seeding games will not have anything to do with MVP, Coach of the Year, Rookie of the Year, All-NBA, All-Defense, etc. So Jay and I are going to give you our 6 winners the way we did this. If we had a vote, this is who we would vote for, not who we think is going to win or whatever. If we were NBA voters, this is who we would vote for. That's how we did it. And so we'll talk about all of that. But first, Jay, what's up, dude?
What's up, man? Just testing out this new microphone holder. Seems to be doing pretty well. Pretty awesome.
Jay got a new mic stand. He's pretty pumped about that.
Yeah, I'm in a good mood. It's almost Friday. I feel good. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to talk some NBA because we finally got some NBA action going on.
Yes, and like I mentioned before, it's opening night tonight in baseball. You got Yankees and Nationals tomorrow. The Cubs play. All other teams are going to be playing these next couple days, so that's also exciting. You get some sports are back, man. It's just official. They're coming back. It's going to happen. So
we've been waiting for this moment.
4 months. 4 months we haven't had shit other than a few golf tournaments, some UFC fights.
I do love those.
I mean, and NASCAR races. I mean, I don't think I've ever sat down and watched a race in my entire life, and I probably never will. But some people like them, and we had those. So if you're a fan of that and whatever, so there you go. Those are the few things that we've had up until now, but the things are coming back. So let's briefly talk about what the NFL is doing. So the NFL announced that they will do daily testing, and it was reported that it will cost the NFL $75 million to conduct all of this testing from all these players. But, I mean, the players forced the league's hand, and they had to do this because all the players were basically saying, like, I don't think I'm going to show up if we don't have any safety and health guidelines, because all up until last week, they had nothing. And, you saw even the biggest of names, Mahomes and Russell Wilson, guys like that were tweeting saying, hey, we want to play, but we need some rules. We need something to go off of, and you guys have given us shit. So they've got the testing down. There's no preseason. They cut the roster down to 80 players. So, I mean, they're moving along, and we'll see how all this testing goes because, I mean, there was actually not that many out of all the players that they had tested. I think there was a report that there was 95, and then I saw the report got cut down to 59. But
maybe someone just had dyslexia.
Or that's very possible. Actually, I didn't even think of it that way. But how do you feel about no preseason? Because I've never been a fan of preseason. I honestly can't stand it. And I'm glad that they don't have a preseason this year. And I'd be fine if they never played preseason ever again.
I would not say that I'm fine that they don't have a preseason. I actually do enjoy watching some of the preseason games because you get to see some talent that you might not have gotten to see if they didn't have that opportunity in the preseason. I know a lot of undrafted guys get their opportunities, or late round picks who come out of college, small school guys that you don't really know what's going to happen until you put the pads on, and then they just get on the field and flourish. And the guy I always go back to that I remember most benefiting from a preseason was Victor Cruz.
He's definitely probably the most popular one for sure.
Yeah, when I was watching him play in the preseason, whenever he broke into the league, and I just remember thinking, like, who is this guy?
2010 or 11, it was one of those years.
And he tore up the preseason and then goes on to have a pretty good NFL career and become a starter. And would that have happened had the preseason not been around? I don't know the answer to that. So I actually do like watching the preseason. I mean, I clearly don't like it nearly as much as the regular season. I do feel bad for some of those low-end roster spot guys that probably really could have benefited from the preseason. But if I have to give up preseason to have a regular season, I'll give it up 10 times out of 10. So I'm really excited that the NFL is doing stuff. And I remember I think it was the last pod, we talked about how the NFL didn't really have a plan. We talked about J.J. Watt coming out and saying, what the hell's going on? We need answers.
Yep.
And I told you I wasn't that worried because I'm pretty sure the NFL has a plan. They just haven't released it yet.
Well, I don't think they did until all the players started tweeting. I don't think they had a plan until all the players started tweeting stuff out. I really don't, because after they did all of that is when you saw the NFL release that they were meeting for like 8 straight hours and all the owners were getting on a call with the league. So I really, until those players started tweeting out, man, I don't think they had a plan. They might have had a semblance of a plan, but there wasn't a plan. There wasn't.
I mean, maybe they didn't have a concrete plan, but I'm pretty sure they had a good idea of what they were going to do. They just needed everybody to vote on it and be okay with it. But NFL is way too valuable, way too smart, makes way too much money to not have been up day and night figuring out what's going on and how they're going to continue with the season. So I wasn't ever too worried about the NFL not happening.
And I wasn't worried about it not happening, but I'm just telling you, based off of the evidence, it doesn't look like there was a plan, man. It just didn't look like that way. And like I said, and I mean, you know how stars drive things to happen. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is probably the biggest star in the NFL right now, and he got involved in it, and they're like, oh shit, okay, let's sit down and crank this out for sure right now. Make something that's going to be happy with the players and the owners and everything.
That could be true. I don't know.
But,
All I know is they have a plan now, and I know $75 million sounds like a whole lot of money. But if you think about it, I believe I read that all 32 owners are going to split up that cost. So you're looking at a little over $2 million per team, when in reality, if they didn't have a season, they'd be losing probably billions. And now if they just pay this extra $2.5 million, that's going to save them money in the long run because the season's going to happen. They're still going to make money. So really, it's just a drop in the bucket to these guys. And I don't think anyone's going to be tested more than NFL players going forward.
I agree. I mean, you have to. It's just the number of bodies in the facility, just based off of what they're doing. So, yeah, and I saw that they are going to, if they do allow fans, they're going to require all fans to wear face masks. They might sign waivers, because I saw yesterday that the MLB, they do anticipate on having fans later on in the season. So I think they're going to try it. Like I said, I just don't know what happens if a whole team breaks out. But obviously doing these testing, that limits guys coming in and not knowing that they have it and then giving it to 6 or 7 other guys. So they had to do something like this. It was really the only way that they could do it, in my opinion.
Yep, and on paper they nailed it. Let's see if it goes through.
Exactly, you
and everything goes to plan.
But again, man, we've talked about it a lot. You and I, Jay, we both thought that the bubble in the Orlando was going to work for the NBA. So far, it has. I don't want to jinx anything, but so far it's working. And there was a lot of people who are pessimistic about that happening. So, and so far so good. Like I said, I don't want to jinx anything, but yeah. So we'll see.
It's all working so far, and I'm excited, and I'm just so glad and happy to see that sports are back.
Yeah, we needed it, man. We did.
Bad.
I mean, yesterday we'll move on from that to the NBA awards and the scrimmages. I mean, you saw yesterday there was 4 scrimmages. Today there's 4 more. I think the Pacers and the Blazers are playing right now. The Bucks and the Spurs probably just finished up. You saw the Clippers and the Magic. It's just awesome to see these guys back on the court. And honestly, from watching it, the crowd noise, it's a little different, but it's not as strange as I thought it was going to be. I mean, it may be a little different when the games are actually meaningful instead of these scrimmages where guys are only playing like 20 minutes a game. But, I mean, you hear when the quote-unquote home team is on defense, you'll hear the built-in defense chants. You get the home team gets a bigger thing behind their basket that says their name, so they feel more at home, I guess. Those are the advantages that the home team is going to be getting. They tried some artificial crowd noise in the Heat game against, I can't remember who the Heat were playing. I think it was the Kings. They tried some of that. So they just working with a lot of different stuff. I think obviously that's what these scrimmages were for, to get your legs back under you, but also try some things because it's just different how there's nobody in the stands and there's no noise at all. So
Exactly. They're going to have some kinks to work through, and why not do it in games that are not playoff games?
a week before the seeding games start.
Exactly. Get your kinks worked out now. See what works, see what doesn't work, and go from there.
Yeah. And, I mean, some of these teams they still got kinks as well, too, because some of the guys are leaving, and then they got a quarantine before they get back in. We mentioned Zion. The Clippers had Montrezl Harrell, Patrick Beverley all leave. Who else left? A few other players have left for personal matters, but they obviously plan on coming back at a later date. It's better to leave now than leave in the middle of the season or during the playoffs, because now if you come back on like Sunday, you're able to come back for the first game officially. But we're just going to see these things happen, and it's just awesome. It's been 4 months. I couldn't
be more pumped. I never thought I'd be this excited for the NBA.
I never thought I'd be this. I never thought I'd be this excited to watch sports again because it's just been so long. I mean,
that's true as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, these games don't count for anything, and I've been glued to the TV watching them.
And they're just scrimmages.
Exactly,
yeah.
They're just scrimmages. Like I said, people, the like Kawhi and Paul George they played like 20 minutes, and I bet that's what LeBron will do, and Giannis probably did today, and Jokic for the Nuggets, but yeah, we saw Bobo. Man, we saw Bobo make his. I don't think he's ever appeared in an NBA game before.
And he looked good.
He came out in the scrimmage.
Didn't he have like 5 blocks?
I think he had like 16, 10, and 6. I think in his first ever game.
Blocks.
Yeah.
Now you know why I drafted him on 2K.
Yeah, like I said, he's a monster in 2K. That dude's the best player of all time. But so just fun, man. It's just really fun. All right, let's go to these awards, Jay. Let's start with the Coach of the Year. And
okay.
I'm going to have you go first, and then I'll tell you my Coach of the Year, but I want to hear who yours is first.
Okay, so this was probably the toughest decision of all of them for me to make a decision on.
Okay.
I ended up going with Nick Nurse as my Coach of the Year, but who do you think I had as my 1A or 1B?
Billy Donovan.
It was Billy Donovan, just because of the Thunder could have easily, if they were a bottom 5 team in the NBA this year, would you have been surprised based off of losing Russell Westbrook, losing Paul George, and what they were coming into, kind of like a rebuild, and getting Chris Paul at his old age? Did you see? I mean, if they would have finished top or bottom 5, would you have been surprised?
I would have, because I remember at the beginning of the season, I didn't think they would make the playoffs or be this good. But I said that the Thunder will be a very competitive team. And also, I was under the assumption that they were going to try and move Chris Paul basically the day they got him. The minute he was eligible to be traded, I thought they were going to ship him out. There was also talks that they were trying to get rid of Danilo Gallinari, Dennis Schroeder, Steven Adams was in trade talks. So
all this was going on, which I would have assumed
Billy Donovan.
They would be bad. And what Billy Donovan has done this year is incredible and shouldn't be overlooked. But what Nick Nurse has done, I just don't know how you can't give him Coach of the Year.
I agree.
He lost who a lot of people think is the best player in the league from his team, the Finals MVP from last year. Vegas predicted them to win 46 games this year. Vegas is rarely this wrong because they had already won 46 before this whole shit happened, and they were on pace to win 59
out of 64 games already.
They had a 33-year-old Lowry and a 35-year-old Gasol in the starting lineup to go along with Siakam, and I don't know if Van Fleet would be this good if he was on any other team. So with all those things to take into consideration, I also believe that Nick Nurse is a defensive guru. I don't know what he does defensively. I don't know if any of his players are just great defensively, but yet they're one of the top defenses every year he's been there.
Actually, right now they're currently second in the entire league in defensive efficiency, but only behind Milwaukee.
Yeah, well, Milwaukee's blowing everyone out of the water defensively, so they're kind of like an asterisk. But you take Milwaukee out, and yeah, they're the best defensive team in the NBA.
Yep.
Nick Nurse to me You can't go any other way.
I agree, and he's actually he's my coach of the year as well. And the reason why I guess Billy Donovan was because also he was who I was deciding between Nick Nurse and Billy Donovan. So Billy Donovan would definitely have been second on the ballot if I had a ballot for the NBA, which I really wish I did. I would love to be able to
That'd
vote
be
on
cool.
those awards. It would be awesome. But for basically all the reasons that you said, they lost Kawhi. They're second in the East. They're 46-18, and they did this with a lot of their starters or key backup guys missing a lot of games. Like Pascal Siakam only played 53 of the 64. Lowry's only played in 52 of the 64. Ibaka's only played in 50. Marc Gasol's only played in 36 games. Van Fleet's played in 48. Norman Powell only played in 44. So they did this with a lot of guys that you probably have never even heard of. I mean, they brought Rondé Hollis-Jefferson from Brooklyn, and they revived his career. Terrence Davis, an undrafted rookie who probably may finish second in Rookie of the Year voting. It's very possible. And a guy like Chris Boucher and OG Anunoby. So they just, every guy they got to contribute, and Nick Nurse is able to just get something out of these guys. And last year, when Toronto won a lot of these games, I didn't think that Nick Nurse, it took me a while to come into terms with Nick Nurse because I thought, I can't think of it. Who was Dwayne Casey. He was the coach before Nick Nurse, and I was just like, I don't really know if that's going to do anything, firing Dwayne Casey and bringing in Nick Nurse, but I was wrong. I think Nick Nurse is easily a top 5 coach in the league, and he's proven it because he's doing this with, I mean, a lot of guys missing time, and like you said, Jay, losing Kawhi, who people think is the best player in the league, and if you don't, he's at least in your top 5.
Yeah, and like I said, last year's Finals MVP.
Yeah, so, yeah, hats off to Nick Nurse, but Billy Donovan is a close second. I agree.
What's the next one you want to go
Let's
to?
go Rookie of the Year. I'll start with this one, Jay, because
Okay.
I think I kind of have a feeling where you're going,
Okay.
even though I think you're wrong.
Well,
But
fuck you, because I don't think you're right.
I think it's John Morant. I really don't think it's a question. Zion just didn't play enough games, and I know that's probably the sexy one to give it to is Zion because, I mean, yes, when he played in those 19 games, he was unfucking believable. And had he played the amount of games that John Morant did, I think it would have been hands down Zion Williamson, probably would have been a unanimous Rookie of the Year. But what John Morant's doing under the circumstances, I mean, he's averaging 18, 7, and 4. He was the number 2 pick in the draft. So they sucked last year. They finished tied for the second worst record in the West at 33-49. They already have 32 wins so far once the season got shut down. They're currently sitting 8th in the Western Conference. They're 3.5 games up on the logjam that is the 9th seed with the Blazers, the Kings, and the Pelicans all tied at 9. So what John Morant's done, I just think he deserves Rookie of the Year, and I really don't know how you make an argument for Zion if you do pick him, Jay. I don't know.
Yeah. So insert foot in your mouth because I also went with Ja. I think I don't know how you can give.
I mean, know there was a few weeks ago you were really thinking Zion should win this award, but go ahead.
So Zion only played 19 games. Like you said, had he played all the games and been healthy for the whole season, I think it would have been a runaway that he won.
He probably runs away with it.
John Morant, I believe, came into the league and looked like he belonged from day one. He's trying to dunk on everybody he plays. Like I said, he's got the Grizzlies, who were an atrocious team last year, fighting for a playoff spot in the West. He looks like the leader they've been looking for. He looks like the number 2 overall pick. ESPN did a poll on all 6 of these awards for vote havers, whatever you want to call them, and all 70 voted for Ja Morant as Rookie of the Year.
Wow.
70 of the 70. So that right there should tell you, 1, he's gonna win, and 2, I believe he should. He led all the rookies in assists per game and was second in points per game.
Mm-hmm.
So what he's doing, he's always available. He was playing all the games, so I just don't think you could. I've thought about it. I don't think you can give it to someone who only played in 19 games.
I agree.
No matter if Zion would have averaged 30, 10, and 10, he only played in 19 games.
It's just too small of a sample size. It's just,
exactly.
It's not enough, and it's not. Obviously, it's not his fault that he wasn't available. I mean, it's just kind of the luck of the draw, I guess, that he happened to miss the first 40 games of the season and then came in for the last 19. And
I think people should look at it like this.
And Ja was just doing his thing.
It looks like we have 2 potential superstars coming out of the same draft class.
I think it's
going forward.
I would say that it definitely, you probably do. At least multiple time All-Stars.
Yeah.
And all NBA level players.
And two very fun players to watch.
Yeah. And another thing, they're in two markets that really don't get a lot of publicity. I mean, Anthony Davis was in
you're right.
New Orleans for 7 years. And
year one, as the second best player in LA, he's already being talked about more.
Well, what I was saying is, yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, the Pelicans already have gotten more publicity in Zion's first year than they did probably combined in Anthony Davis's first 7. And Anthony Davis was the number 1 overall pick. He was an All-NBA, All-Star type guy, but they just didn't care about him. He didn't have that type of hype. And same thing with John Morant. The Grizzlies, I mean, since like 2014 when they made the Western Conference Finals, they've basically been irrelevant. I mean, they made the playoffs a few times after that with Conley and Gasol and Zach Randolph, but did you really care about them that much? No. Were they that exciting to watch? Not really. But with John Morant, some of these young guys that they've got, that's just good for the league to have these small market teams who have great players on them.
Yeah, I agreed. I don't remember if you remember right when they drafted him and he gave his speech and he was emotional. And I texted you and Andrew, I think, I was just like, I really like this kid. And I think he's going to be one of my favorite players going forward.
I do remember that.
And he belongs in this league.
Oh, hands down. There's
no question. So he's the runaway to me for Rookie of the Year.
Agreed. All right, let's go to sixth man. And I want to hear I went first last time, so we'll just keep going back and forth. Who goes first?
Okay.
So you go first on sixth man.
So my sixth man, I think I'm giving it to Dennis Schroeder.
Okay.
Reason being, the dude averaged 19 points off the bench, and I know the other two big vote getters are going to be Montrezl Harrell and Lou Will for the Clippers, but to me, he had less talent around him, and going back to the season that the Thunder had, which I did not see coming, I think he played a big part in that and was maybe the behind Billy Donovan and Chris Paul. He might be the third most valuable person on that team. And I just think he's a big reason why the Thunder have overachieved this year.
You could definitely argue Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as well for that position, but your point's made. I had him at number 2 behind Montrezl Harrell, and I mean Montrezl Harrell's averaging 19 on 58% shooting and 7 boards, and just I think he has a bigger impact on the Clippers opposed to Lou Williams because, again, Lou Williams is a back-to-back winner. He's another guy, like you mentioned, is a guy who is going to get a lot of votes. But I just think it's Montrezl Harrell, his defensive presence, just his energy that he brings. He's that classic. He's literally the spark off the bench, but he also averages 19 and 7 while being that energy, that hustle, all of it. And he just makes a difference when it comes on the court. He's just got a nastiness to him. He said the other day that he's the modern-day Rodman. And, I mean, he's a better scorer than Dennis Rodman. He's not as good as a defender, but he plays a similar style to what Rodman did. And I think it's Montrezl Harrell's award to lose.
Okay, and I don't have a problem with that. Harrell would have been my second, and Lou Williams would have been my third. Reason being, I don't think you can give the award to Lou Williams this year when – and I like Lou Williams as a player. I think he's fun to watch. I think he's an awesome dude. He's a scorer, but when you look at the last time the Lakers played the Clippers, they looked at whoever Lou Williams was guarding and got them the ball and wanted that person to score. And to me, you can't give someone who considered a liability the reason that they were being another team. Makes sense.
Yeah. And Lou Williams would have been third on my ballot as well because that's a big reason because of his liability defensively. He's got a lot of limitations there. And guys, and a guy like Montrezl Harrell does not. Even though he's an undersized 4, he's about the modern day 4, but he's an undersized center when they go small. But yeah, he can hold his own, and he's done it on defense up to this point. So mine goes Harrell, but I don't have an argument against Dennis Schroeder because, like I said, he'd have been 2, and I think he's an excellent candidate because, again, we talked about the Thunder and what they've been able to do this year is damn impressive. I think the Thunder have the 3rd best record since Thanksgiving,
which is nuts
in the entire league. Like they started off 6-11, and then I think they're like 34-13 since then, or something like that. Man, it's insane. Yeah.
Where you want to go next?
Yeah. Let's go most improved because we'll save defensive player and MVP for the last 2. Let's go to most improved player. And this may surprise you, Jay, but I went with Bam Adebayo over the probably I'm guessing a lot of people are going Brandon Ingram for this award, but I just think Bam Adebayo, I mean, he increased his numbers all the way across the board. He went from playing 23 minutes to 34 a night to becoming a full-time starter. He almost doubled his points from 9 to 16, his rebounds from 7 to 10.5, his assists from 2 to 5. His defense is just, I mean, he might be the guy who's, aside from Giannis, maybe the guy right now the best served to guard 1 through 5 in the entire league. You saw what he did against Giannis back in March, held him to his worst game of the season, only 13 points. And the Heat, I mean, I know they acquired Jimmy Butler this past offseason, but they're 4th in the East right now. And Bam Adebayo is a huge reason why, because of because what he can do offensively and defensively. He's a more athletic, better scoring Draymond Green. Because he's got the versatility defensively. He's a really smart passer. It's just what he did. He just really surprised me. And I think that's more of what you look for in this award, is a guy that kind of comes out of nowhere, because Brandon Ingram did average 18 points last year, and he did uptick it to 24. We also got to look at the Pelicans. At the beginning of the season, until Zion came in, they were awful. I mean, so you could argue that Brandon Ingram was just putting up a lot of points on a bad team, because the Pelicans were really bad to start the season. They were like one of the worst defensive teams in all the NBA. So that's why I went Adebayo over Brandon Ingram.
I don't have a problem with that. I believe he's going to get some votes. I believe he should get some votes. Honestly, I would give it to Luka Doncic. And I know you're probably going to be like, well, he was already really good. And to me, yes, he was already really good as a rookie, but that doesn't mean he's ineligible for the award. Like, you don't have to be a no-name player and then go to being a good player in order to receive it, in my mind. And I think a lot of people see it like that.
I agree with that.
He increased in all major categories. He increased his points, his rebounds, and assists. He was averaging 29 and 9 on the season, and had the Mavs with the same amount of wins as the Rockets, who a lot of people think could be real problematic in the West. And I don't think he should be penalized because he went from good to great. You know what I mean?
And he did a lot of it without Kristaps Porzingis for the early part of the season. So,
and I know a lot of people do know who Kristaps is, but if you take him away, does the casual fan know really even one or two other starters on the Mavericks outside of Luka?
They may know. I guess he's not a starter, but Steph Curry. I mean, I think he's a bench player. But other than that, I mean, they've got guys like Dwight Powell and Dorian Finney-Smith and Tim Hardaway Jr. So no, they don't really have big names. I mean, so I get your point. Yeah, like you said, Luka went from a good player his rookie year to, I mean, superstar, really.
Yeah, he's one of the – to me, would you say he's a top 10 player in the league?
Easily. There's no question. He's probably a top 7 player, at least based off of what he's done so far this year.
There you go.
I think he's a first-team All-NBA guy. I really do, depending on where you put LeBron, because LeBron is eligible to be a guard on the All-NBA team. So if you put him at guard or forward, I think the two best guards in the league this year have been James Harden and Luka Doncic.
Yeah, and I just don't think he'll get a lot of votes because people will view him as already good. And I think this vote a lot of times goes to like a breakout player.
Exactly. And it usually does, because you don't really see it. And I think when Luka was drafted, everybody projected him to get to this point in his career. They just didn't think it would be this early.
Yeah, well, it's happened, and he's arrived.
He has. He's awesome to watch too. Yeah. It's a really good time in the NBA right now, man. It is. There's a lot of good teams. There's a lot of good players. A lot of them are really young too.
I thought you'd hate on my Luka pick.
No, I don't actually. Like I said, I don't think that he'll win, but it's just because of what we talked about, how that award is viewed.
And this is what we would do if we had a vote,
exactly.
Not who we think's going to win.
Agreed. All right, Jay. Start me off with your Defensive Player of the Year.
I see what you did here. You wanted to be the first to talk about the MVP.
Actually, I didn't know that's how it was going to go when
I see.
I actually gave you the first go-around with it with Coach of the Year. So, there you go. I let you go first. Unless you want to go MVP first, and then we go Defensive Player of the Year.
I'll give you my Defensive Player of the Year. The MVP is the biggest award. We got to save that for last.
All right.
Defensive player of the year, to me, I don't think it's close. I think Giannis should be the defensive player of the year.
Okay.
I think he guards all five. He can guard any of the five positions. If you want to break it down statistically, the eye test, I think he passes everything. When he was guarding the opposing player throughout the entire season, that player averaged 36% from the field.
Mm-hmm.
That was the best in the NBA. I think, to put it in a nutshell, in the easiest terms, the Bucks are by far the best defensive team, and he is the best defensive player on the best defensive team. So, all in all, he can guard everything. He's clearly a lockdown defender, holding opponents to the worst field goal percentage in the entire league, and he's on the best defensive team, and he's the best defensive player. So, to me, I think it's a runaway. I think Giannis should win Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, I also have Giannis as my Defensive Player of the Year, and had Anthony Davis been as dominant as he was from the beginning of the season to now, because his defense kind of tailed off a little bit. I don't know. I don't know if it was because of that shoulder that was bugging him or his ankle that was bugging him, but there was just something different. I mean, obviously he's still tremendous, and he probably will finish second or third, Anthony Davis, and be on a first all-defensive team, but it's Giannis because, like you said, the Bucks are won defensively by a landslide. I mean, they may be the best defensive team that we've ever seen numbers-wise. I don't know if you would say that based off of, I mean, you've seen some really good defensive teams, Spurs teams over the years, those Heat teams, and with Wade and LeBron and Chris Bosh and some of those Pistons teams and Bulls, but whatever. You get my point. And, I mean, Giannis is the best defensive player in the league, and he's the driving force behind what makes the Bucks so good. I mean, he's 6'11", and he may be one of the most athletic NBA players of all time. I mean, the guy's lateral quickness, his ability, if he gets blown by, his arms and his recovery speed is so good to get a chase down block or alter a shot. And like you mentioned, that 36% opponent's shot against him is the best in the league by a wide margin. And so, and his ability to guard 1 through 5, like I said, Bam Adebayo's probably 2 who you would want to guard all 1 through 5 positions, but right now it's Giannis, and I don't really think it's close between him winning Defensive Player of the Year.
Agreed.
But like I said, I do think that Anthony Davis will make a strong argument because the Lakers are 3rd in defense this year, and they were 12th last year, and a lot had to do with Anthony Davis. A lot had to do with LeBron stepping up and actually playing defense this year. But then you make the argument the Lakers play in the tougher conference. Anthony Davis' ability to guard a lot of positions is up there with some of the best in the league as well. But I agree with you, Jay. It's Giannis and the Bucks. They're putting up historic numbers.
Yeah. All right, Nick.
Okay.
Let them know who's the MVP.
The guy that wears number 23 and plays for the Los Angeles Lakers. It's LeBron.
Spew the facts.
It's LeBron. It's him. It's him over Giannis. I'm not sure. We were talking about this the other day because you put some money on LeBron to win the MVP, and you really want him to win. For that reason, I've just heard so many people, all these guys that are able to vote for the league, say that they're voting for Giannis, and it's not even close. And I just don't know how you say that because the Lakers are the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. They're 17-10 against teams above 500, which is the best in the league. The Bucks are 2nd with 15 wins over teams above 500. But again, they play in the tougher conference. If you want to just, I don't even have to spill you numbers on some of these teams. Just look at who got invited to the bubble. 13 West teams out of the 22 got invited to the bubble. That was 4 more teams than what was invited from the Eastern Conference, or the Eastern Conference, if you want to say it that. The Lakers are 3rd in defense. They're 5th in offense. You look at LeBron compared to Giannis's on the court, off the court numbers. With LeBron on the court, the Lakers are outscoring teams by 11 points. With LeBron off the court, they aren't even outscoring opponents by 1 point. Now, Giannis's on-off numbers are also extraordinary. His on numbers, they're outscoring teams by 16, but when he's off, they're still outscoring teams by 5. So if that doesn't tell you something about the value of these players, I don't know what does. And also, like I was saying about the most improved player, what do you expect out of things, what's your expectations of somebody, also really drives these awards. Everyone was projecting the Bucks to be the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, expecting them to be one of the best teams, if not the best in the entire league. The Lakers were projected to finish 5th in the Western Conference. They're currently 1st. They are only 2 games back in the loss column of Milwaukee, who does play in the weaker conference. The Bucks were given the best shot to win the title based off of BPI. The Lakers weren't even in the top 5. It was the Bucks, the Clippers, the 76ers, the Jazz, and the Nuggets were the top 5 teams, according to ESPN's BPI, to win the title. The Lakers weren't even in the top 5. And this all while I'm saying is LeBron's averaging 26, almost 11 assists, which leads the league when he's 35, and 8 rebounds. He's 1st in win shares. He's 6th in defensive win shares. He's 2nd in real plus-minus. I don't know what else this guy has to do.
I couldn't have said it better myself, but I got a few other things that I'd like to add because
Please
know I feel the same way. I think LeBron's the MVP every single year. This award has basically turned into who has the best stats at the end of the season, which is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard, because if that's the case, do like the NFL, give the MVP for the most valuable player, and then give an award for best offensive player or best statistical season, because those are 2 totally different things, and it boggles my mind that nobody can figure that out. All these people that have votes don't understand what the word valuable means. I'll give you a number to kind of piggyback off of what you said when you said the Lakers go from outscoring their opponents to like 13 down to 1 or 11 down to 1, whatever the hell you said.
It's 11 to not even 1.
Okay, well, to put it into a different perspective, with LeBron on the court, the Lakers have the 2nd best offense in the league. When LeBron's off the court, they're the 28th best.
There you go.
So what's that tell you? They go from the 2nd best to the 3rd worst in the entire NBA. Right there, I should be able to drop Mike, walk away right there, but I can't. So on top of that, Giannis was hurt at the end of the season. Had they played the entire season, Giannis would have missed a significant amount of games, and LeBron would have easily closed the gap, and I believe easily won. And people are going to say, well, look at it this way. They said you can't take into account the games going forward. It has to be up until March 11th when the season stopped. I look at that as bullshit, because what you're telling me is these games don't matter, and Giannis is basically given the award because you don't get to take into consideration the fact that he got hurt. It
gave him a lot of time to rest up.
Yeah, it did. And if you're going to sit here and say, I believe LeBron would have won had the season continued, why are you saying that? What? Because he was killing it at the end of the season?
Because of what he was doing after the All-Star break. He was averaging over 30 points a game after the All-Star break, those last 2 games against who everyone was saying were better than the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Bucks. LeBron went head-to-head with Kawhi and Giannis, and his team came out on top, and LeBron was awesome in both of those games. He was masterful against Giannis offensively and defensively, and against Kawhi. I mean, against Giannis, and Kawhi, he went head to head against him, playing him. Everyone says LeBron don't play defense anymore, and he was. He's played his ass off. Like I said, he's 6th in the entire league in defensive win shares.
Yeah, and on top of that, I don't know why everybody just decides out of nowhere that whatever they said in the past is no longer relevant because of LeBron. Because all we heard when LeBron was dominating the East was he would never do this in the West. The East is weak as hell. Obviously, he's going to kill the East. Now that Giannis is killing it in the East and LeBron's no longer over there, LeBron goes to the West, becomes the number 1 seed, beats out the Clippers, who supposedly have the best player in the world, maybe 2nd best behind Giannis, knocks them out. They have the top seed in the West. They look like the best team in the league to me. Giannis is killing it in the East, who everybody before was horrible. Now he's down in the East. They're not as bad as everybody thought they were magically because LeBron's not there.
Exactly.
Then you want to talk about beforehand, everybody knocked LeBron. Well, he takes games off. He doesn't play defense. So why would I give the MVP to somebody that is a liability defensively and takes a lot of time off, when you didn't hear that same argument against Kawhi? But that's neither here nor there. But now he plays in every game. Like you just said, 6th in defensive win shares, and yet we're going to overlook that again just because of Giannis' statistics.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. LeBron switched positions, and when he switched positions, immediately became the best at that position in the entire league. He's leading the league in assists. He makes all of his teammates better, which goes back to most valuable player. He uplifts every teammate. Who the fuck was Alex Caruso before he got partnered with LeBron? Everybody wrote Rondo off, and now they're looking at him to make an impact in the playoffs. I know he hurt his hand.
Yeah.
Before he hurt his hand.
But that's the thing. When he got hurt, everyone was like, oh, no, that's it. The Lakers are done because Rondo got hurt.
Yeah. But nobody was saying that. All I heard was Skip Bayless say, well, he's been on 6 different teams in 5 years or whatever the hell the number is. And it's like, oh, now all of a sudden Rondo's relevant because he played with LeBron.
Exactly.
So,
that's what it is. And that's what the narrative is going to shift to. It already basically has how the Eastern Conference is already the better conference, which absolutely is untrue and makes zero sense. I think the top 6 in the East are good teams. But again, like I mentioned, there was 13 teams that got invited from the Western Conference to the bubble, who they brought back because they were closer. I mean, Portland in the Western Conference, I mean, a lot of people are talking about Portland, which is stupid. If they think Portland gets the 8th seed, they can knock off the Lakers. It's just not going to happen. But again, based off of how you're projected, I mean, the Lakers were leaps and bounds of what anybody thought they could be this year. And LeBron is that number one reason why. Because, again, like we talked about, his on-off numbers, I don't care that he has Anthony Davis as his teammate. Anthony Davis made it to the playoffs 2 times in New Orleans when he was there. Got out of the first round once. So if you think Anthony Davis is carrying this team, I'm sorry, you're just sadly mistaken.
Yeah, and I think I heard Kendrick Perkins make a really good point the other day when he said, look, Anthony Davis has a legit case to be made that he should be included in the running for MVP. I don't think anyone would expect him to win it, but he should be mentioned with what he's doing on the Lakers defensively and what he's doing statistically for the Lakers. And when the chips fell and AD was talking about it, he wasn't campaigning for himself. He was like, look at what LeBron's doing for this team. You guys aren't even understanding I see it every day in practice, what he's doing and what he means to this team. He makes everybody around us better. Anthony Davis is getting shots that he's never seen before, being put in positions that he's never been able to be in the past because everyone was able to focus on him. Then he's getting wide open layups because LeBron just puts him in that position. So, yeah, make your arguments all day long, but when you break it down, no one will ever be able to convince me if you're going by the true definition of most valuable player. LeBron hasn't been it since about the 3rd year in the league.
You're right. I mean, he has. And another thing we didn't even talk about was I don't really care for Colin Cowherd anymore, but he actually brought up a really good point about how the Lakers are doing this also with a brand new head coach. I mean, they brought in Frank Vogel, which
that nobody believed in. Everybody roasted.
As soon as they hired Frank Vogel, they're like, that means nothing. Frank Vogel, he wasn't that good of a head coach in Orlando, and they were all writing him off and didn't think that was going to work. And LeBron was going to clash with him again, and like he clashes with other head coaches and blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, he's doing this with – and they got a lot of new players. There was only 3 guys on that team from last year.
On top of that, Kuzma was supposed to break out, and he's played like the most inconsistent player in the league and nowhere near what everybody projected him to be this year. So you got your third big 3 guy is not playing like one of the big 3, and you're still the number 1 seed in the West.
Yeah, man, I don't think he's going to win this award, and
I don't either. It pisses me off.
Get robbed of it because he's been robbed of a few MVPs before. The Derrick Rose MVP, LeBron could have easily won. The James Harden MVP, LeBron could have won.
After the Lakers win this year in the title, again, everyone's going to look back and be like, damn, LeBron really should have won that MVP. And I'm going to say, you're fucking right. He definitely should have.
You can't even really say voter fatigue anymore because LeBron had won this award since 2013. This year, if he doesn't win it, that'll be 7 straight seasons where he hasn't won this award. And that's just asinine.
I agree.
It is.
You won't find an argument from me.
Stupid. So that's why we need votes, Jay.
Hey, question for you. If we do need votes, I'm going to get your justified reaction just out of the blue. You're going to give me exactly what you think because I know you're big into the MLB. I just got an alert. 16 MLB playoff teams in 2020. Yep, every first and second place team in the MLB will make the playoffs this season. What's your initial thoughts?
It's too many. It's way too many. They're going from 10 to 16. I mean, I get it.
And every first and second seed makes it.
I get it because they only had 60 regular season games, so they're trying to make up more revenue in the postseason with getting, over half of the league into the postseason. It makes sense. It's just too many. It's just a lot of them are going to be like regular season games in the playoffs for baseball. I think they could have expanded it, maybe one or two other teams, but not 6 others. I mean, it's been a while since they've played with the alterations on the wild card, because I think they did the second wild card team a few years ago. But I mean, they probably needed an adjustment, but I think 16's too much, and I think it'll just be a weird circumstance for this year because everything's so strange. But yeah, they just needed more games, and this will get the owners more money in their pocket. So I think they were probably the driving force behind this.
It was a money grab.
And hey, I mean, if you got some injuries early and you get hot late at the end of the season and you get into the dance, anybody's got a shot. That's what they all say. As long as we're in, we feel like we have a chance to compete, and it could happen this year for a few teams, because it's strange. It's just going to be weird.
Yeah, I just wanted to get your raw reaction when I saw that.
I saw that too. I got that alert right before, but yeah, who knows?
Well, there you go. I got heated about the LeBron thing. I didn't think I was going to get that heated. It just like took over the body. I always
get heated talking about it because people just are stupid sometimes, man.
I agree. There's some things where I'm like,
where credit is due.
Yeah, there's some things where I'm like, okay, I can see your point of view. Here's where I'm coming from, but your point, I understand it. This boggles my mind how many so-called experts vote every single year against him, and their reasoning is just ridiculous.
It is, and it's just because I know a lot of them have said the Bucks have been dominating teams from the beginning of the season. So have the fucking Lakers. The Lakers have been doing the exact same thing.
We're about to get heated again, but they all go back to, well, Giannis doesn't have another star with him like LeBron does. And I'm just like, yeah, he doesn't have a superstar, but Chris Middleton's an all-star. I believe Eric Bledsoe was all defensive team. He's not playing with scrubs.
No, and they might have 4 guys that make the all-defensive team this year. In Giannis, Bledsoe, Brook Lopez, Wesley Matthews. There's possible that 4 of those guys make all defensive teams because they're all, you go look at their numbers defensively, they're all in the top 10 of defensive win shares and player efficiency rating defensively. So, yeah.
And to me, Brook Lopez is a top 10 center in the league for what he brings to the game.
Yeah, and I think, and I mean, he's a former All-Star. He's not currently an All-Star, but Chris Middleton's currently an All-Star, and Eric Bledsoe's an All-Star level player. He didn't make the All-Star team, but he is capable of making the All-Star team.
Yeah, so get out of here with that. He doesn't play with anybody.
I know. I'm with you there, Jay.
All right, let's get off on that because I'm about to get fired up again.
I agree. We just got fired up about it for about 12 minutes straight, so we'll end there. As always, please subscribe to the Unwanted Opinions podcast anywhere you get them. Also, please leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. Check us out on YouTube. All of our content immediately gets uploaded to YouTube. You can also follow us on any social media platform, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Unwanted Opinions with Nick and Jay. You can email us, unwantedopinionspodcast@gmail.com. Many ways to get in touch with us and find us on all these platforms.
No reason you couldn't have a question answered if you just reach out and ask it.
We'll answer.
I like answering random questions because it gives a small break in the podcast from just what everyone else in the sports world's talking about.
And sports are ramping back up now again, so you got more reason to listen to us.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay. Until next time.
You can't keep stealing my line, man. I say it first, then you go.
You were taking too long.
I forgot if you had already done the Twitter and stuff, but you did, and that's my mistake.
That's definitely your bad.
Until next time.
Until next time.